Don't let me interrupt you. You have 2 more minutes to discuss amongst yourselves. We don't start till 7 o'clock. I'm very much an on-time person, and it is 1 more minute. Hi friends, Shabbat Shalom. Welcome back. Thank you. So tonight is part 2. So we'll edit last week's video and merge it right into this video, and we'll have one full service, 2 hours long. So, Deborah and Rob. All right, so go back and watch the first video after you watch tonight, and it'll all make sense. But Deborah and Rob are shul shopping, as they let us know. Are you from here, visiting? What's the story? You live in Mesa. You know you drove past like 4 synagogues to get here. You've worked your way past them. Okay, we're glad you're here. You can tell gas prices are going down. Now you try. Well, good. We're glad you're here. And as I mentioned last week, I think everybody was here last week except for you guys. Last week, I mentioned that the cantor's on her vacation this week and last week, and I will be on vacation in July. We will not, just so I don't forget, we're not meeting in person next Friday because it's July 4th weekend, and we want to give the staff a chance to not open the building and just have everybody, because the preschool is closed Thursday, Friday, so we're just going to be closed the whole long weekend. We will post a congregation to join Friday night on services online. But every Friday night in July after that is with Cantor Noah, and will be very musical, the opposite of what tonight will be. So tonight is a continuation of what I started last week, which was that I never get an opportunity to really dig deep into the rubrics of the service, all the different parts of the service. And I prepared remarks, and then when the hour was up, because we always start on time and end on time, we had only gotten to the Shema, and it had been an hour already. So I don't want to spend an hour reviewing what we did last week, but I'll just say that what should have been particular, or I'll just remind us briefly, that we began by exploring how the Friday night service is not a collection of random prayers, but it is a carefully designed spiritual journey through different sections. We start with the Shabbat candles here at Kol Ami, discussing parenthetically that is traditionally done at home. And you go to synagogue for the prayers. If you go to other synagogues and you say, well, how come they're not lighting the Shabbat candles? That's a Kol Ami thing. It's not a normative thing that you would see in other synagogues. We talked about how lighting the Shabbat candles moves us from ordinary time as a passage into sacred time. And then we talked about the prayers, or the poems, really they're poems, of Shalom Aleichem and Lecha Dodi, and how they welcome peace and they welcome Shabbat. And we literally think of Shabbat as an honored guest that we stand and welcome. And then we entered into the formal prayer. Anybody remember the name of the formal prayer, to call to prayer? The Baruch Hu. And who bows on the first line of the Baruch Hu? Not me. The service leader. The service leader bows on the first line, and the congregation responds with the second line. You all bow in the first line because you see us bow, and you're like, oh, I'm doing it wrong, I guess I should bow. It's the other way around. You see the service leader bow, the service leader saying, are you guys ready to formally begin prayer? You respond on the second line, yes, I am. Got it? Well, there you go. We already solved one confusion from last week. And then we moved into two prayers that we don't normally get a chance to do because the service is longer than an hour, and so we choose our prayers carefully. But one of the prayers that is in the prayer book is the Ma'ariv Aravim and the Ahavat Olam, which is the prayers in between the Baruch Hu and the Shema. They follow the themes of the wonder of creation and the rhythm of day and night, and that I mentioned that the Ma'ariv Aravim is a prayer that is, the service has the same structure whether it's evening, morning, or afternoon. And notice I said evening, morning, or afternoon because the day begins in the evening at sunset. So the evening prayer is the first part of the day. And then in the morning, the same order of the service, but there's a prayer substitute. Instead of the Ma'ariv Aravim, there's the Yotzer Or. And that is the morning prayer of thanking God for sunlight. So in the evening, we thank God for sunset or darkness, and in the morning, we thank God that we now have daytime. And then very briefly, we talked about Ahavat Olam and God's love and connection in our lives. And then we moved to the Shema, which I talked about as, I've often described as, if there was such a thing as dogma. We don't have dogma in Judaism, but if there was, I was forced to give you an answer, it would be the Shema, which really isn't dogma. It's just a statement of monotheism or the belief in one God. So the Shema really reminds us that beneath all the noise and beneath all the distractions of life and beneath the divisions, there's this deeper unity, and that is the oneness of God. So it calls us to Shema, listen. Listen to God, listen to another person, listen to ourselves. We sometimes don't give ourselves credit, and those values that guide us. So, I don't think we got to the V'ahavta, which is on the next page, which is 34, 35, and 36. Ooh, I remember that somebody asked, why do we do the second line of the Shema quietly? And what was the answer for that? 34, 35. The Shema, the first line is loud, and the second line is quieter. I think, Karen, you asked that question, so what was the answer? It's not in the Torah, that's right. The Shema is in the Torah. The Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam is rabbinic text written later, so they don't want this to be confused as if the same, so you say one louder than the other. Then you turn the page. Now, I've mentioned to you that we at Kolami stand for Shema, and then we sit down. If you are in a conservative or Orthodox synagogue, you may blink and miss the Shema. It just goes right through from the call to prayer where you would stand, and then you would sit, and the next time you would stand up is the Tefillah or the Amidah in a few more pages. Why don't we stand for Shema? Why? This is a harder question. This moves from knowledge to application. But why do you think we stand, the Reform movement instituted standing for the Shema? What did you say, Warren? Oh, nice. We open the ark because we stand, but so that's more of a result of than the cause of. That's a good idea. So, in thinking about the meaning of the Shema, you get it. Remember we talked about we stand because it draws attention that something you're about to do is important, and just in case you were falling asleep. We talked about how the Shema is our statement of our doing. We witness God's oneness, but we witness it through our actions. And so we lift up the Shema as a powerful statement in Reform Judaism that it is indeed a doing prayer, even though the doing is to listen. Has anyone watched Disclosure Day yet? I don't want to ruin it for you. Did you go see it? You did. So I don't think I'm ruining it. There's a line in the movie that I'm not going to ruin when or how it happens, but if you recall that the emphasis was on listen. And then I walked out of it going, hello, that's a sermon right there, because that's the Shema. That's the listen. Right? Doesn't say to the Jewish people, hear. What's the difference between listening and hearing, by the way? Right? So in the movie, they didn't say hear, they said listen. Listen is much, it's a, you don't just, right? How many times have we hear people but don't listen? All the spouses are looking at each other. Right? So when you listen to someone, you are hearing the other in more than just, I hear the words you're saying. So I don't want to ruin the movie, but that's Spielberg coming from Jewish background. I really think that that's what the Shema is really about, is not hear, it's listen, much, much deeper level. That's right. That's right. I was going to say looking versus seeing. You can look at something, but doesn't mean you see it. You can hear something, doesn't mean you listen. That's right. There's a different verb for looking at something and seeing something, just like it's a different verb to listen and to hear. Excellent. So, we don't ever get a chance. Oh! We're good. We're good. We're good. I'm attached to the chair. We don't ever get a chance to do this cool thing that Steve built for us. Watch this. Uh-oh. Yep, it works. Hold on, I'm off camera, but I'm going to come back. Wait, I think it's locked. Yep, look at that. Watch this. I'm going to show you something really cool. I'm bringing it over here. This is thanks to Steve. Steve's right back there. Steve built this. You don't have to stand. It's okay. Okay, so we have here, it turns so you can scroll through the Torah without taking it out. Where's my thing? There it is. Okay, so what I want to show you is we could have turned to any part of the Torah, and you have, thank you for that, you have open, I asked, we rolled the Torah to this page. So notice that what's written here is with vowels, but what's written here is without vowels. So you can identify this verse is the second paragraph down right here. And if you want to get up to see it, so you can see the Shema is the second paragraph down, the first line of the second paragraph. Does everyone, even if you can't read Hebrew, you should be able to eyeball 6 lines down. There you go. You should be able to, that text comes right out of there. Feel free to, if you have to get up, come look. It's not going to bite. Nope. 6 lines down right there. And you can see the really big D sticking out. Hey, how are you? You have to sit in the middle because nobody's sitting over there. So come over here. Warren wants you to sit next to him. There you go. And who are you? John? Hi, John and Michelle. You had no idea what you walked into. This is Shabbat Light. So we were just looking. The cantor's not here, and you don't want to hear me sing. So we are using this opportunity. What do rabbis do? They teach. So I'm using this opportunity to teach Shabbat instead of just singing Shabbat, which you'll sing Shabbat. There'll be plenty of Fridays to sing Shabbat. Tonight we're going to talk Shabbat. What?
On the left side. The bigger one, the bigger letter that you were talking
about. Right here where my finger is, there's a really long, bold, black letter. That is the D, right, where's my D? Right there. So it's right there. Right there is that very large D. And this ayin that's bigger is bigger right in the 6th line down, Shin Mem Aleph ayin. I'm going to do it. I really shouldn't, but I'm going to do it. This hour is going to blow right by. Here's what happened. You know the answer, so don't say it. Why does the Shema in the Torah, you don't see it as well in the book, but in the, where am I put that down? In the Torah, in the book where they try to recreate it for you, if you look at the regular font, it's just regular font. We're on page 34, 35, by the way, John. So when they try to recreate it, they made the ayin large and the dalid large, larger than the other letters. Does everybody see it? The ayin and the dalid are bigger than the other letters. That's not random. That is, visually, you can now see where they got that from. In the Torah, the ayin and the dalid is bigger than all the other letters. And if you need to get up to see it, this is your chance. Anybody want to see it? Mike, you want to come over here and see it? Come on, man. You know what? Wait. How does the... Oh, watch this. Oh, check this out. Hey, Steve, come here for a second. I want to try something. Steve, come here. I just realized that if you lift this, then I can point right to it. You lift it up. Does it come out or no? Okay, fine. Okay, fine. I'll do this. Watch this. Yeah. I'm gonna do it. So, show me where the ayin and the daled. I can't see. I am. This is now. You see the really big daled, and then what does the ayin go this way? Nope, this way. So now you can see the really, really big ayin and the really, really daled. Does everybody see it? Okay, here's why it was important to me for you to see that. Because so the editors of the prayer book didn't just make this up. That's literally what it looks like in the Torah. It's really big. So the question becomes, why, if this is, remember when we started, this is such an important verse of Torah. You ready for it? You're going to love this. Shema with a aleph instead of an ayin. You know, like what do you call it in English when you have words that are spelled differently but spelled, what is it? Homophones? Where they're spelled differently, pronounced the same, but mean different things. Give me two examples, or give me an example. Here and here. Here and here. So Shema and Shema, spelled with two different letters, mean two different things. Wait for it. I'm not even there yet. Shema with an ayin. Oh, and I got to start over. Hey. Shema with an ayin is listen. Shema with an aleph means perhaps. What would the sentence be if the sentence no longer said, listen up, people, there's one God? What if it said, perhaps, Israel, there is one God? Pardon the expression, but God forbid, we said, perhaps. They raised the ayin so that you pronounce, that you're saying the right one, because it's such a declarative statement. But wait, there's more. The daled, aleph, chet, daled, echad. It's not a homophone. How do you say it? Is it really a homophone? Homonym? Whatever. So the aleph, chet, daled. A daled looks like what other letter if you're learning your Hebrew? What letter? A resh. The resh and a daled look very similar to each other. The daled is a hard corner and a resh is rounded, but it looks very, very similar. So if it was a resh, it would be pronounced, instead of echad, it would be pronounced acher. So the word would be, it would be a different word. It's no longer a homonym. It would be a visually looking different. So begs the question, what does acher mean if not echad? So if it became, listen up people, there is only one God, acher means, can't make this up. Acher means another. Acher. So echad, which this statement is such an important statement of monotheism, listen up people, there's another God, if it's pronounced acher. So listen up, people, there is one God. And if you said them both wrong, it would be, hey, perhaps, people, there's another God. And then what I first started by talking about how dogmatic and how important the statement of Judaism, in fact, Reformed Judaism instituted standing for us at this point in the service. That's why, going back thousands of years, those two letters were lifted up and made bigger so that you never actually say, perhaps there's another God. It's listen to the importance of the word listen. There is only one God. Yeah? Okay, well, good night. Thank you all for coming. And thank you, Steve, once again for the opportunity. Oh, I know what I actually, that's why I said I didn't really want to do this because I knew I was going to take on a tangent. I love tangents. I actually came over here to, because we did the Shema already, I did this for the second verse. Now that you know where the Shema is, look at the very next sentence underneath it. If your name is not Donna, can anybody read Hebrew? Does anyone know what the next sentence in the Hebrew? Gary, get over here and tell us what the next sentence is. Oh, the big Lamed, the big I, and the big Dalet. Look under the Dalet. There you go. All right, I'm going. All right. What's the next sentence? What's the next word? Close.
Am I saying it wrong?
Turn the page, everyone, in your books. Turn to page 36. It's the V'ahavta. V'ahavta. Straight out of Torah. It comes, so the Shema and the V'ahavta are connected. And now we go back to why do we sing the second line of the Shema quieter? Because the Shema and the V'ahavta go together. But when Reformed Judaism instituted the whole standing up and then sitting back down again, this comes from Rabbinic Judaism. That's Shabbat 2.0, and I don't have time for that. Oh, it belongs there from a prayer book point of view. It doesn't belong there in the Torah. Right. I'm sorry, Rob, what? It does not have a quotation mark. Or the vowels. Notice that what you're looking on 36 is all vowels, and the Torah has no vowels. How do we know how to read this, or how do we read this? You read this, which is effectively has training wheels on it, and you read it so many times that they take the training wheels off, and you keep reading. It's the same thing. You become familiar with it. Let me think if that's true. Is the V'ahavta the only prayer book that probably true. I would go with that. Let me turn back a page. I just want to see 1 second. No, the Shema does. Look back a page. Shema has trope because it's straight out of Torah. The Baruch doesn't. The Shema does because Shema is a Torah verse. And then, just out of curiosity, I'm going to just eyeball a couple of prayers. No, he doesn't. Okay. I have another good answer. Let's see if they match.
There's an exclamation point and a period. That's not in there.
So the prayer book has the vowels and what do you call those things? All the other punctuation. The Torah has no punctuation, no periods, no numbers, nothing, which leads, you really want to have your mind blown. If you read this without reading that, because you're locked in, so if you read this and you were asked to translate it, you would use whatever knowledge you have to translate it. But how many of us, what's a good example? Trying to think of an example. We're sitting, we all watch the same movie. I'm going back to a movie thing. And we walked out and you say, okay, summarize the movie. And you're all going to give about the same thing, but the words you choose a little different, the idea. That's why there are 100 different Bible translations, because that's the text of the Bible, not the King James Version or the Jewish Publication Society version or this or this or this, because it's somebody's interpretation, because that's the text of the Bible, not the English. The English is a translation. And a translation, by default, has opinions in it, right? Why did you choose that word versus this word? Why did you choose to translate it as "Hear, O Israel," instead of, because remember the old the prayer book that we used in the 80s and 90s said, "Hear, O Israel." I don't know if you remember that. This book says, "Listen." The English translation is so important. It says here. Never mind. Forget what I just said. Well, that just failed, crashed and burned, but maybe it's the other way around. Whatever. You get my point. So, always love the opportunity to roll the Torah out. Boop. Pretty cool. All right. Wow. Time flies when you're having fun. So, speaking of verses of Torah that is in the prayer book. Oh, another point. We may have mentioned it last week. Where else can you find the V'ahavta if not in the Torah and the prayer book? Where else will you find it? Hello, how are you? Good. Have a seat. What's your name? Hi, Talia. Are you first time? Have you first time? Many years ago. Welcome back. We're having Shabbat talk. So I'm talking Shabbat. All right. So where else do you find the V'ahavta? And it's not in the Torah, and it's not in that Torah, and it's not in the prayer book. Where else will you find it? The mezuzah. Booyah, Gary, you get 10 points. It is in the mezuzah. For 5 points, why? Turn on page 36. Because it says so. Put them on the doorpost of your house. The verse of the Torah literally says, put it on, right? It says, take these instructions. By the way, which instructions? It says, say, the third verse down. Take these instructions. What instructions? Which ones? Which instructions? Which instructions? But which? Torah. Take the Torah verses and teach them to your children and bind them as a sign upon your hand. What's that? Bind them as a sign upon your hand. And what is that? That's the tefillin. That's the tefillin, a symbol on your forehead. That's tefillin. And then put them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. That's why it's in the mezuzah, because it says so. All right. Let's keep going. Great question. Does the V'ahavta, what is in the mezuzah? Oh, I have a 50-50 on this one. Let me think for a second. I want to look just so that I can. I'm gonna guess. Yes, I have a colleague named Rabbi Google, and I want to before I look. I'm gonna go with V'ahavta, not the Shema. That's my lucky guess. Let's see, and the answer is. Dang it. Starts with the Shema. All right. I knew that. I was testing Rabbi Google, and Rabbi Google got that right. So it starts with the Shema. It starts with the Shema. I knew that. I was just testing you all. All right. See, I can be wrong too. All right. So now we have moved to the point in the service where we remember the Exodus, page 40. A reminder for those of you that on the side of the page is your where we've been, where are we in bold, and where we're going for that section of the service. So this section ends with Vishamru, and where did it start? The Baruch Hu. Because remember, what was that? What do we call that? The what part? The call to prayer. So that's the section. Call to prayer through the Vishamru is a section that we're currently talking about. So Milchamocha is where we are, and why is it so important that we remember our Exodus not just every Friday night, but every day. This is part of we're talking about the daily liturgy of the prayer book. freedom is not something that happened once in Egypt, right? Every generation, we remind ourselves of Passover, every generation has forms of its own bondage, whether it's the bondage of fear, the bondage of prejudice, the bondage of addiction, the bondage of loneliness or despair. And so when we recite the words of the Mi Chamocha, we're asking ourselves, what am I trying to become free from? What and who still needs help finding freedom today? You go back to the Shema statement, and I said to you, why did Reform Judaism stand? Because we see ourselves as partners, going back now to Shabbat candles, of creation, which means creation isn't something that happened a long time ago. Creation is happening every day. We're partners in helping to make the world a better place. And so the Mi Chamocha says freedom didn't happen, it's happening. And what is our role in all of that? We don't just sit back and say, gosh, I wish. It's like the lottery ticket joke, right? You remember the lottery ticket joke, right? The guy who says, I praise to God and he'll buy a lottery ticket. And over and over. The punchline of the joke is, as he prays all these different times, he dies, he goes to heaven, he says, God, I did everything right by you. I did this. How come you never, let me win the lottery? And God's like, did you scratch the ticket? Right? Because you have to meet God halfway. You can't just win it all. You have to engage. And that's why the Shema is the engaging prayer. The V'ahavta is the doing. You have to teach you have to teach the lessons, you have to learn the lessons, instructions. So Mi Chamocha reminds us what's going on out there. And then the next prayer, which in our Mi Chamocha, followed by the Hashkivenu, we talked about this prayer as being the one that we only add on Friday nights. This is, if you look at the verse in English, grant, O God, on page 42, grant that we lie down in peace and raise us up to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Cause us to lie down in peace. So, if the Shema is our declaration of faith, the closest thing to dogma we have, then Hashkivenu is our most human prayer. And what I mean by that is that at the end of the day, when we're preparing to sleep, and sleep requires something many of us struggle with, and that's trust. So every night we let go of control because you're going to sleep. You don't know what you can, if you think about the vulnerability of which you're in when you sleep. We set aside our work, we set aside our worries, we set aside our tasks, and we place ourselves in the care of something larger than ourselves. So if you think about that imagery, it's really beautiful. We ask God to spread over us a sukkot from the word sukkah, meaning a shelter of shalom, a shelter of peace. Sukkot shalom is a fortress, if you will. We're asking God, notice that we didn't ask for walls, we asked for a shelter. Because a sukkah is sturdy, but it's open enough to remind us that life always contains uncertainty. It's the same thing that I say at a wedding, that it's like a sukkah. It mentions protection at the top, but it's open on all four sides. And that's because we remember where we are, but at the same time, the relationship is open to your friends and loved ones who are there to support you. So it goes together. Judaism is teaching us that we're not free from vulnerability. Instead, actually, we have to seek peace even in the midst of uncertainty. And that's why I think the Hashkivenu, which is what for many people the most beautiful part of the service, the one with the cantor, really such a beautiful prayer to listen to, and God forbid you don't want to hear me sing it. But it resonates because it talks about our concerns of our family and our concerns of our health and our concerns for our community and our concerns for our nation and our concerns for our future. So when we're asking God to put over us a sukkah of peace, we're recognizing that God's not going to solve all of our problems and fears, but we'll feel a sense of protection a little bit, even if for a moment that our burdens are covered. Questions about the Hashkivenu? Okay. And then you turn the page and you get page 44. And notice at the top, by the way, I'll come back to that. Remind me of top. Okay, Vishamru. I'm interested, Wendy, in your comment that the Shema, the V'ahavta have trope because it's straight Torah text. The Vishamru is Torah text as well and doesn't have trope. Interesting. I'm curious why the editors chose to do that. But the Vishamru is another cut and paste job from the Torah. The children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath, is the first line of the Vishamru. Vishamru v'nei Israel. The people of Israel, the children of Israel shall keep Vishamru, guard et HaShabbat, guard the Shabbat. Keep, observe, guard. There's a fascinating paradox in this verse because Jews have always said that we keep Shabbat. Yet Jewish teachers have observed the opposite. Shabbat keeps us. And what do I mean by that? Is that week after week, year after year, Shabbat has preserved the Jewish people. Empires risen and fallen, nations come and gone. Jews have lived in prosperity and persecution and freedom and exile. And what has been the constant companion from the very beginning? Shabbat. There's the famous verse, famous quote from the Jewish thinker Achad Am, who said that more than the Jews have kept Shabbat, that Shabbat has kept the Jews. And I think what we, at least in Reform Judaism, in the context of this service tonight, that we may observe Shabbat differently to a point than our ancestors, but we continue to embrace the essential gift of Shabbat. And that is that Shabbat creates this moment in time that the world constantly, reminding us that the world constantly needs attention. It reminds us that our worth is not measured by productivity. And that invites us to pause, even if it's for 24 hours out of a week, to reconnect with family and community, and to remember that we are more than what we accomplish. So as we sing Vishamru each week, we celebrate not only the commandment that right, it's the fourth commandment. Remember and observe the Sabbath day. So it's not just the reminder of the fourth commandment, but it's a reminder of our weekly opportunity to renew our relationship with God and our relationship with each other. Preaching to the choir, you're all here. And with our deepest selves. We have to forget yourself. So the Torah calls the Shabbat a sign. That's the next verse. It's a sign for all time. So tonight, as Jews have done for generations, we affirm each week, every Friday, we affirm Vishamru, that we do this not just because we're commanded to, but because we meet God where we are. Now, what I wanted to say at the very beginning is notice that on the page of the book, it says at the top, what does it say? Select either Vishamru or Yismachu. When I grew up in my synagogue in Houston, my cantor would go to Yismachu. So it's like, you're just like you're used to the way Kolmi does things. We're all used to the way we've all, our home synagogue, the way we do things. Yismachu, similar in theme, but a different, same theme, different prayer. And as I mentioned to you, this is the same rubric of the service every day, but this prayer is only sung on Shabbat, because it wouldn't make sense to sing this on the other 6 days of the week. So if you're going to service on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you're going to go right from Hashkivenu into the Tefillah. Why give a choice? We Jews, this is the prayer I'm going to sing, and this is the prayer I'm never going to sing. I'm kidding. That's the old synagogue joke. No? Nobody? No? Why two synagogues in one city? Because there's this prayer to the synagogue you would never attend, the synagogue I only go to. All right, never mind. Rabbi jokes. So, what Vishamru? Why Vishamru or Yismechu? Because it's not a prescribed part of the service. It's something that got added later on, and probably my guess is that one community did one way, another community did this way, and when the committee was trying to write the book, they said, you know what? We'll put them both in. I'm sure that's the answer. I'm sure. Okay. Tefillah, page 46. Notice that we have reached a new section of the, the menu. If you're looking at page 46, 47, and 48, 49, 46, 47 is just an introduction section of Tefillah. But if you turn to page 48, 49, you'll see that the menu on the side gives you the section, all the prayers of this section. Now, how many times do Jews pray traditionally a day? How many times? 3 times. Morning, afternoon, and evening. How many prayers are in this section? We're going 2.0 here. This section of the service, which is called the Tefillah, on the weekday has how many prayers? Does anyone know? Don't remember? You see, I was wondering if you remember, because it's the other name for this prayer, which is the Shmona Esrei. Anyone remember the Shmona Esrei? Shmona Esrei is the other name for this prayer, which is the 18. So there are 18 prayers. We Jews are not very creative in our names for prayers. Because what does tefillah mean? Does anyone know what tefillah means in English? Prayer! We're not very clever in our names. The prayer that we now get to is called the prayer. What are these over here? They're not the prayer. This is the prayer. So why is this section called the prayer? Because you haven't stood in a traditional synagogue. You haven't stood since the Baruch Hu. This is the spiritual center of the service. This is does anyone remember the other name for tefillah that is not tefillah? What's another? It starts with an A and ends with a midah. Anyone? What is it? The Amidah. I didn't say Amidah. I said the A with the midah. Okay, so what does Amidah mean in English? Stand. This is the standing tefillah. So, again, we're not very creative people, it's either called a prayer, it's called a standing, parentheses, prayer, or it's just called the 18 because we don't call it the 18 on Shabbat because, turn the page, how many prayers are in this section? 8. So, that's a trick question because you read it and you're correct, that's what it says. There's 7, but I can explain. So, you're very familiar with this prayer because we stand up and we sing the first 3 together, right? On page 48, 40, 50, and 52. Everyone take a look. 48, 50, and 52. We stand up on page 46 and we say, Adonai Sefatai Tiftak, and then we turn, and then this prayer begins, page 48. Baruch atah Adonai, right? And we bow at the beginning of page 48, and we bow on the last verse of page 48. There are people who bow again on page 50, but they're wrong. They're just doing it because we did it on page 48. They're wondering why we're not doing it again. We don't overbow, just like we don't overjew it. Okay, anyway, so we Avot v'imahot, it's got the names of it. The Giverot and the Kiddusha. The 18 on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday have the same 3 on Friday and Saturday. These 3 prayers that we're doing right here are the same we do all week. So that's 3. turn in the menu, go past Kiddushat Hayom, and you get Avodah, Hoda'ah, and Shalom. You see in the menu the names? You see what I'm talking about? So the first three are Avod, Givorot, Kiddusha. So three, what I'm trying to point out to you is 313. 313. So why do I emphasize 313? Because the 18 that you had on in this section of the prayer book on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is the same three that you start with, the same three you end with, but the one in the middle, the Kiddushat Hayom, is substituted for 12 prayers during the week, and those are asking prayers. You're asking for things. You ask for wisdom. You ask for all kinds of things. But what do we not do on Shabbat? Don't ask, because it's Shabbat. God said, I'm going to work for 6 days, and I'm going to rest. So we take that section and we say, so it begs the question, what's the 3 in and what's the 3 out? They're not the asking prayers, and I'm not kidding. I hope I'm not ruining this for you. Because you're so used to reading in the Hebrew, you don't even know what you're saying. The first 3 prayers, do you remember going to your mom or your dad or your parents, and before you asked for something, what did you say or do to your parents right before you asked them for something? You what? You compliment them. Yes, gosh, Mom, you look great today. Did you do something to your hair? Oh, my goodness. That's literally, oh yeah, can I borrow the car? That's literally what the first 3 prayers are. Avot v'imahot, right? What's the prayer? We talk about, you're familiar with this. We do it in the Hebrew. You're familiar with it. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak. Who are we listing right now? The fathers and mothers, patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, Sarah, Rebecca, Leah, Rachel. We're listing them. And what are we saying? Hey, God, you remember how you knew our ancestors? Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Leah, Rachel. And remember how you liked them? Well, we're connected to them. So we're we're setting the stage for you love them, therefore you should love us. Turn the page. You're awesome. Turn the page. You're fantastic. Right? Look at what it says. You are holy. Your name is holy. Those who are holy. Literally, and I'm sorry to put it in other words, the buttering up prayers. You're literally buttering up God. You're saying, you're the God of the same God our ancestors. You rock. You're awesome. Here are the things I need from you. Here are the 12 things. But we take that section out, the 12, and we put one in. What's the one thing called the Kiddushat Hayom? Go to page 54, 55. We don't usually do this. We do it in English. Can anybody figure out what page 54, 55 is about? Look for the theme of this page. Which is Shabbat. The holiness of the day is the thank you prayer for having Shabbat. So if you kind of read through the page, you'll see it's about Shabbat. And then what is in the final 3 prayers, which are the same prayers going out, whether you've just asked for 12 things or you thank God for the 12, is the same thing. Once your mom gives you the keys or dad gives you the keys to the car, you're like, by the way, fantastic. You are awesome. You're great. Avodah literally is the prayer of find favor, right? It's the thanking prayer. And then the word hoda'ah, which comes from the word todah, todah rabbah, thank you. This is thanking God prayer. And then shalom, literally the prayer of peace. So you go from buttering up God, asking God for something, thanking God for what you've asked for. That's the tefillah during the week. And the tefillah on Shabbat is throwing down our resume to God, thanking God for Shabbat. And then when you guys said there's 8, the 8th, let's jump to the 8th prayer. The 8th prayer is on page 62. This is the 8th one on the menu. This is not part of the tefillah. This is called in Hebrew tefillah, so prayer. Halev, lev is your heart. Prayer of the heart is a euphemism for silent prayer. So what do we traditionally do when we stand for the tefillah? We sing it with the cantor, and then we usually give you a chance for silent prayer. Silent prayer isn't something we made up. It's in the prayer book. It's literally on this page is a silent prayer, which means I often refer to it as we pause from the prayers of the formal prayers of the book and turn to your own individual prayers, because everything we've been doing up till now is scripted. So I say, now go off script and you each add your own prayer. But the rabbis, knowing that what your prayers and what your prayer is different, you get a chance to recite your prayer of the heart, your own, in your own way, not collectively. So we've gone from the all of us prayer to an individual prayer. Questions about Amidah? Does that make more sense now? Make more sense, huh? Okay. Oh my gosh. Too bad I'm leaving town. Notice that, wait, I'm going to go back with you. I'm going to go back with you. Page, what was I on again? 62, 60, whatever. Okay. Look what happened. We got to page 62, 63, turned 2 pages to 66, and notice that it starts all over again. So we have finished the Friday night service. So the first 2 sections, which are the Kabbalat Shabbat, the welcoming prayers, then we move to, 3. The welcoming section, what they call the Shema and her prayers around it, and then the Tefillah. Those are the 3 sections, and then you're done. And so now you get to the Shabbat morning service, and we normally would jump, in a normal service, we would jump past the morning service. There's an alternative second evening service we could do. So the prayer book put 2 different versions of the evening into it, and then 2 different mornings, and you jump, and the very next thing after the morning and evening, it's an afternoon prayer service. And if you get past the afternoon service, you get the Torah service on page 244. And the reason the Torah service is here is because you'll get to the Torah service whether you go through the morning or through the afternoon or the evening, you still get to this page. So that's why it's laid out as morning, afternoon, or evening sections first, then you get to the Torah service. There's only 1 Torah service in the book, but there's 3 different, 5 different entrances to get to this point. So the Torah service notice that it's in the context of the Torah service that you find page 253, which is the Mishaberach. But we don't normally understand the context of when we jump, we now get to the Mishaberach that we add on Friday night. But if you go to any other synagogue, you're not really going to hear it, especially in a traditional synagogue. You may in a Reform synagogue. But why is it, where to put it in the prayer book? It goes in the Torah service, because as I mentioned last week, the Mishaberach, the word Mishaberach doesn't mean prayer for healing. The Mishaberach literally means the one who blesses. And so there are various Mishaberachs, if I were to Englishize a Hebrew word. So there can be a Mishaberach for a wedding. There could be a Mishaberach for a baby naming. There can be a Mishaberach for a donor, because we're Jewish. There could be a Mishaberach for healing. And so Mishaberach is when, at Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, I call up 7 different groups of people and I offer a Mishaberach for each one. So you're used to hearing the word Mishaberach as a prayer for healing, but Mishaberach is not a prayer for healing. A Mishaberach is any prayer that's recited at that time of the service. Does that make more sense now? And so when does the Mishbeach happen? During the Torah service, in between Aliyahs, is when they happen in a normative, regular, but we, the clergy, we can do it whenever we want, and we choose to insert it after the Torah service, but in the Torah service, but after the Torah reading, because we only do one Aliyah. Make more sense? All right. We did that last week, and I don't have time and I didn't get time to show you the ending. We don't often get to talk about the ending. Page 282. This is the prayer that is a little problematic. And we don't often talk about the problematic because we read it in the Hebrew. But since I'm being honest and transparent with you, I'm just going to name how uncomfortable this prayer is. I've been out of seminary 20 years, and how many Friday nights times, so 52 Fridays times 20, how many is that? What's 20 times 50? 20 times, no, it's 52, okay. I think about what I'm about to tell you every single week for the last 20 plus years. Okay. We sing, notice that on page 282, there are two Alenus. We sing, yes. The Alenu prayer is a prayer that asks us to imagine a world redeemed. Many people assume the prayer is about changing God's mind, but Jewish prayer really is about changing our own. So Alenu is asking us to envision a world as it could be, and then asks us to help build that world through our actions. That's the correct answer, and that's what I would leave you with. That's what I would teach our children in religious school. This prayer is about change and envisioning the world as it could be, and remind ourselves that we're agents of that change. Great. Period. The end. That's lovely. We sing it in the Hebrew. We don't often read the English. The one we read in English, the one we sing in Hebrew is the second one. And let's just look at it because we never do. Let us now praise the sovereign of the universe and proclaim the greatness of the Creator who has set us apart from the other families of the earth, giving us a destiny unique among the nations. Even this, by the way, and as I read it, I notice that this version already has made uncomfortable a little more palatable. What is problematic about this sentence for some people? And maybe you never noticed it. Maybe it's not a problem for you. That's correct. It's saying that this is the chosen prayer. This is saying that even in the English, it's sort of, because you remember you can choose how you want to say it, but this is, we're the chosen people, and you gave us, and in their English, this particular English translation, it says, you set us apart. Didn't say better than, set apart. So it didn't say we're above everyone else, it says we're over from everyone else. And it doesn't say that we're better than, it says we have unique destiny. So even the English massages what the earlier translation says, we are chosen. This is literally what the earlier translations say. And so when I was in rabbinical school, there's a classmate of mine who refused to include this prayer in the service that he led because he didn't believe in the chosenness. And we Jews have been spending the last 2,000 years saying we're not chosen as in better than, chosen meaning we have been given a mission to do. You just weren't asked to do it. We're chosen to do it. But anti-Semitism is often built on this theme. So for a lot of people, it's an uncomfortable sentence to recite, and we don't even realize we're saying it because we're doing it in the Hebrew. And so you can appreciate in all of the services, and especially in the interfaith services or things where like I've had guests, and we're singing, and people are like, we're singing, this prayer is so beautiful. And I'm like, oh my God, if you only knew what we're saying, you have to reinterpret the prayer to make it more palatable. And I truly believe that we're not chosen better than. In fact, I would say we're the choosing people, not the chosen people. We're the choosing people. And I believe that I'm not washing this because I think you can, to be consistent, the Shema, right, the creation, the Shema that we're witness, the Michamocha, what is our job? We're the choosing people who are accepting the responsibility to help make the world a better place. Doesn't mean better than, doesn't mean you're not in and we're in. That's not what we're saying. That's not what this prayer says. But that's why a lot of people, and particularly those who have had anti-Semitic ideas, say, well, you're trying to say you're better than. That's not what this says, but I can see where people get that from. Make sense? Cool. Cool. Turn a page. Turn 3 pages. Turn 4, 5, 6 pages. 7 pages. Oh my gosh. All right. So we jump to 294, but keep your finger on page 294, and you get 288, 290, 292. So there are meditations in here that we often don't read. I remember choosing one of these to read when we had more time. We used to read one of these before we got to the Kaddish, but now for the sake of time, we just sort of jump to Kaddish. And the Kaddish is, I really think, the most surprising prayer of them all, because it says mourner's Kaddish, but never mentions death in any way, shape, or form. Instead, it magnifies life. It sanctifies God's name, which really is powerful, that at a time of grief and moments of grief, Judaism understands that we may not have answers of why this happened, why that happened, but we can still affirm that life remains sacred and that we remain connected. I mentioned to you that there are 5 versions of the Kaddish. The mourner's Kaddish is just one of the 5. Pop for 5 points. What are some of the other ones? The Chatzi Kaddish, the most popular other one, and the Chatzi Kaddish. And for 3 points, when do we use the Chatzi Kaddish? It was, I referred to it last week as the separator, the colon, semicolon, in between the different sections. You use it as the palate cleanser from the Kabbalat Shabbat to the call to prayer, and the call to prayer to get to the tefillah, and maybe from the tefillah to the Torah section, and from the Torah section, you literally, how do you know you've gone from one place to another? They in a traditionally observant synagogue where the service leader is literally just reciting the prayers in one fast way, and you lose your place. When you hear a Chatzi Kaddish, like, oh, okay, I know where I am. It's literally a clue that, we just ended the section I'm lost in. Because it's a place, it separates the two sections. And that's why in a traditional service, they're all like murmuring the words, and then every once in a while the service leader yells out some word, like he starts a new paragraph. I'm saying he because just being honest. Says the few words out loud because he's telling the congregation where he is, and then he'll go back to whispering. It's literally a way to stay on the same line, if you will. And if you really lose you, just look for the Chatzi Kaddish, and you're like, oh, okay, I know where I am now. Did we talk last week about the Kiddush and the Motzi? I don't think so. Did we? I don't know. Oh my gosh, how does an hour go by that fast? So as we conclude our 2-part introduction to, oh my goodness, I can't get up. Okay, good. We encounter the how the Kiddush and the Motzi have nothing to do with the prayer book. In fact, they're before the prayers, in case you needed the prayers at home. Kaddish, Kiddush. Kiddush, Kaddish. The root of the word's the same. And Kadosh, Kiddush, Kaddish, Kadosh, right? They're all related, but they mean different, but they're related. And the KDSH, which forms the word Kadosh or Kiddush or Kiddush or all the different variations of that word, those are all variations of the word for holy. So the mourner's Kaddish, we're referring to the holiness of God at a time when we're feeling like we don't have all the answers. The Kiddush is about the holiness of Shabbat, but you can't touch Shabbat. Remember, we touch the candles, we touch the motzi when we say the prayer of the challah. We can't touch Shabbat, so we touch something as sweet as Shabbat, and that's Manischewitz. So we hold the wine as the sweetness, which the prayer literally is the fruit of the vine is what we're thanking God for. And so holy, and I often refer to this, holy doesn't mean better than, holy means set apart. So we're saying that when we talk about the Kiddush cup, what's different by Kiddush cup, which would translate as holy cup, really would have better translated as the set apart cup. This cup is, I'm just imagining I have a cup right here. This cup is different from this cup because, imagine this was a cup. How is this a water cup and this a wine cup? Or the Kiddush cup, for being consistent. Because we made it that way. What makes this room holy and not the social hall or the office or the kitchen? Because we say so. We are the ones who infuse holiness, which comes from the word set apart, not better than. Holy means we set apart this room and said, this room is holy. This will be the space that we're going to offer our prayers. This is going to be the way we designate Shabbat. So we are acknowledging the sweetness and the joy of Shabbat through the cup, and that's why we lift it up. And then lastly, I think the motzi, which is normally there would be 2 challahs in a traditional synagogue, which wouldn't even have challah services anyway, because you would have had Shabbat dinner at home, and you wouldn't do this prayer in the synagogue. So you would light your Shabbat candles, you would come to synagogue, you would do your prayers, and then you would go home, and you would begin by saying the Kiddush, and then the motzi, and then go into your Shabbat dinner in a perfectly normal world. Motzi is literally just simply a way to slow down and separate us from the animals, because when animals, like the dogs, you put a food in front of them, they just ravenously, grab it, and they eat it so fast. There's funny videos of dogs grabbing food really, really fast. Saying a prayer like the motzi slows us down as we look at our food and we say, I appreciate that this food is here, and the ability for us to, even when we're hungry and we're like, by being able to pause and acknowledge the source of that food, even if the food is from a restaurant, it ultimately, if you follow enough trucks and enough people back, it's going to get to the ground and a farmer, and which is earth and God. And so motzi is a way to slow down and just be aware of what's around us. Woo! So I leave tomorrow morning for Ethiopia. I will see you in August. We will not meet next week. Cantor Noah will be back to the last 3 Fridays, whatever that is, in July with you all, and you will hopefully get a chance to sing the prayer. Now, you will sing the prayers that hopefully you will remember some of the things I shared with you, any nuggets. And if you don't remember, no problem. We'll do this next summer. All right? Good? Dessert's on me. I'm buying. So let's enjoy. And please come back and hear the music of the service and put the two together and you'll get an idea. Thank you, everyone. Shabbat Shalom.